Welcome back inside our Let's Talk Dallas County program here on the Raccoon Valley Radio Network. This month at La Poste, some beautiful artwork on display. Darcy Milder with Darcy Milder Art is showcasing her portraits, bold abstract color portraits available at La Poste and Perry for your viewing. And we have Darcy with us here. First off, Darcy, I just got my first glimpse of your work. Wow, breathtaking. This is really impressive. When did you start creating art, and when did you fall in love with this style of art?
First, Shawn, thank you for having me. So I am a brand new artist. I've actually only been at this for about a year. I received an easel and paints for Christmas right before the pandemic, and it was a great gift. But at the time, I was a busy mom and working, and I thought, what am I going to paint? I love it, but what am I going to paint? And I hadn't actually picked up a brush at all. And then the world stopped. It absolutely stopped. And my business, my photography business, was asked, by the governor to be part of, if you don't have to work, if you can shut down your business and keep people safe, let's close these things down, the things that we don't have to do. So my business sort of took a hiatus, and all of a sudden I did have time. I had a lot of time. And so I used that time creatively and picked up a brush and started painting. But it wasn't until a year ago, June of 2020, that I painted the first face. So everything that you see on the website and on the social media and in the room here at La Poste has all been created in the last 12 months.
Now, I have to say this. Most people don't pick it up this quickly. I mean, so you have the natural God-given talent, but had you painted at all kind of during your younger years, or really, you really picked this up in a couple years? This is really remarkable.
Thank you. No, I did not paint prior, but I am also a photographer, and part of what we do in photography is retouching and editing. And the portraits that I take for photos, I do end up blowing up quite large to go into the faces, the details, and I do feel like some of the things that we do for retouching for our clients to, not to change their faces, but to just help them feel like the best version of themselves. We do a little bit of cleanup. So I have for a decade had faces, large children and, mothers, and I have been working on making those faces in a different form, using Photoshop or, using my camera to make these beautiful images and these faces. And so you sort of get to know faces, right? And you kind of love faces. I love faces. Right? When you're walking, people always talk about people watching, and they want to see people's expressions and their interactions and their faces. That's how we tell our stories. So I kind of always thought that I could paint a face. I just never did paint a face.
And when you talk about your distinct style of art, it's termed abstract color painting, abstract portrait painting, and you stressed the word bold when I was talking about it before we started this interview. So bold abstract portrait painting. How did you fall in love with this style?
Okay, that's a great question. When I was learning to paint, I did a lot of Googling and checking out YouTube, and as one does with one's pandemic free time, right? I mean, how much time did we all spend online, right?
Too much.
Too much time, too much screen time. I came across an artist named Shawn out of Canada, and I'm scrolling through images and YouTube videos, and I just stopped. Like, I saw a face that she had painted, and it looked exactly like a face, but I noticed that she had used, these bright blues and purples and oranges, and nothing about the face was an actual skin color. It was an abstract color, and bold choices, right? They weren't like subtle pastels. They were bold, bright choices. And I looked at that and I thought, yes, I love that. I love her work. I love what she creates. I love the idea of making faces that look like faces. With unusual choices for color. You don't have to have, you can look at these faces and know that they're faces and see the emotions. And they don't have to be, Caucasian or brown or the colors that faces actually are. They're actually to me, so much more beautiful when you can pull the story of the color, of the emotions of the piece, and find color to tell the story rather than just recreating what they are. Again, I'm a photographer. If I wanted to create a photo that looked exactly, an image that looked exactly like them, I would take a photo.
Darcy Milder is our guest. Darcy Milder art on display during the month at La Poste in Perry. As I look around the room and you see some of your work, each one represents a different part of the world. And it kind of all comes together with what you just described. You go beyond the skin color. You go beyond what we see. And really the expressions and what these children are going through wherever they may be across the world. So my question is, what inspired you to go down this road with the children and with the world perspective?
Sure. Well, when I get hired for commissions, I'm generally not able to choose the faces in the images. But when I do personal work, then I get to choose, right? That's sort of artist choice. And we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and the world has kind of stopped. And as I'm scrolling through images to choose faces, to try to find inspiration and references and stuff, the images that always sort of stopped me in my tracks, the ones that sort of make you catch your breath and say, look at this face, like the emotion on this, the storytelling. They're never the smiling, cheesy ones at the camera, right? They're the ones that make you feel something. There's something in their eyes, or there's something in their expressions. And some of these children are living in countries, and they're just not quite as lucky as some of us. And they're experiencing instability and poverty and tragedy. And there's just so much on their faces and their stories, and it's just really beautiful to paint not just a face, but a face that has emotions on it, that tells a story. I find that incredibly beautiful.
The attention to detail is really something to see. How long does a typical portrait that you put on the wall take? I mean, again, the detail, the attention to detail is what really stands out to me, so I can only imagine the time that you put into these.
It does, and it can vary. Generally, it takes a lot of layers to make these over and over. And I would say a piece takes me anywhere from maybe a week to a month, depending on how many layers and if I'm happy with the progress. And if I feel that the colors and the expressions and the choices are telling that child's story. And it's hard to know when to stop. Sometimes you look at this and knowing when to stop as an artist is probably one of the biggest challenges, because it's paint. You can always keep going. You can always make changes. When are you done as an artist? How do you know that the painting is complete? And that's one of the choices that you have to make as an artist is when it's time to step away from the piece and call it done. And that can be a week, and that could be a month.
Personal life experiences are always something that drives an artist, and I'm talking all different types of artists, whether it's music, whether it's what you do, no matter the case. And I'm very sorry to hear you lost your mother recently to cancer. My condolences on that. And I understand it really shifted the way that you approach what you do. Talk about that for us.
Right. So this is still very fresh for me. So my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer right as the pandemic was starting. So while many of us were having a hard time with just a pandemic, I added a very scary diagnosis. And a lot of us, when we talk about, oh my gosh, that would be my worst nightmare, it's usually about losing someone that we care about. And for me, those things were happening simultaneously. I was literally living one of my worst nightmares, and doing so in the midst of a global pandemic. I was scared to death to get sick, because not only would it mean a danger to me or my family, but it also meant that she would be off limits. She was going through chemotherapy, and we had to be particularly careful about not getting her more sick than she already was. And as she got sicker, I feel like art was a way for me. I think of it like this. When you read a book, when you first sit down, right, you have these book and these pages, and you are very aware of each page, and you're aware that you're holding an object. But as you start reading, right? The book disappears and you sort of get lost in the story and you stop seeing words and paragraphs and pages and you start, it's almost like a movie, right, in your head. Painting works like that too. When you first start painting, you're aware that you have a surface and that you have paint and that you have paintbrushes. But as you start working, that whole sort of room sort of tunnels away and it's just you and the canvas and the reality, the things that are hard, they go away. And it's almost like this fugue state of just you and the art, and you can tell the story and you can sort of get lost in the painting. And when life hurts, having moments to escape into something feel therapeutic and important. And for me, these paintings were ways for me to sort of get lost and forget about, just for a moment, the things that were really, really hard.
Darcy, in closing here today, how can people discover your art? What are the best ways for them to take a look at what I'm seeing here? Obviously, they are going to be on display at La Poste. They can physically come in and check them out, but I believe you have a website as well that's available.
Sure. There's a couple ways. One, first, I do encourage everyone to come here to La Poste and check it out. It's an absolutely beautiful place down here in the cellar. It's a speakeasy here. It's got a great throwback vibe, and it's the best way to really see the art is to come here and actually check it out. But if you're not able to get to Perry, to get down to the cellar at La Poste, I am online. I have a website that's darcymilder.com. It's DARCYMILDER, darcymilder.com. If you use social media, I'm on Facebook at Darcy Milder Art, and also on Instagram at darcy.milder.art. And all of my pieces and stuff are posted there, both these faces and some of the personal projects that I'm doing in the community as well.
Well, Darcy, we've enjoyed the time. We could talk for hours. I know I could. It's so fascinating to me. But welcome to Perry. We're happy to have you here, and we look forward to having a lot of people discover your art and your work.
Thank you so much, Shawn.
Darcy Milder Art, our guest here on the Let's Talk segment. Dallas County, presented by Fairway in Perry. Again, her work on display at La Poste.